That is on. Shall we sing? Lie, lie, lie. Really, really hard song. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Welcome to congregants, to friends, to guests, to family, to everyone joining us here in the sanctuary and everyone joining us online. It is so wonderful to see you all. We are joined, as always, by our congregational president, John Broder, on our bima. And tonight we were hoping to have our wonderful Road of Shalom youth choir, Shirenu, so generously sponsored by Donna Horowitz-Barron and David Barron, perform for us. But unfortunately, we had a few cancellations, and we only had one very brave soul, and he's not quite up for his first solo yet, but he'll be singing from the things. And we look forward to, as our youth choir is really rebuilding, and we're looking forward to future Shabbats where we'll really get to see them in force. And if you know any little ones who want to sing, we want them. Let's ensure that we are praying together as one community tonight. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat online or to find someone new in the sanctuary to meet. I remember, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I remember when I first started here at Congregation Road of Shalom about 13 years ago, our Berger Early Learning Center had just opened up, and one of our very first families was the Steiners. And I remember Drew, who was bar mitzvah just a few years ago. Sorry, I do this all the time. I remember Evan, who was bar mitzvah just a few years ago as a little boy, and I remember Drew as a little baby, and now, look at, taller than me. I mean, it doesn't take much, but we are so excited that tomorrow Drew Steiner will become a bar mitzvah, and so we welcome Drew along with his brother Evan and his parents Holly and Ken to lead us in our Shabbat blessings, beginning with candle lighting on page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And we continue with the Kiddush on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים.
Mazel Tov Steiners, thank you. So today, of course, is Groundhog's Day, which, you know, in Pennsylvania is pretty important. I think I was told that it's good news, right? We're going to get an early spring, maybe? Although I also looked up, apparently the groundhog has been only correct 37% of the time. So, hi, Shabbat Shalom, Nora. But it's also the 23rd of Shvat in our Jewish calendar. And in Rabbi Jill Hammer's The Book of Days, she actually talks about how this day is kind of a lot like Groundhog's Day in our Jewish calendar, because both are actually picking up on a astronomical phenomena, which is, why is Groundhog's Day this day? I don't know if people know this. This is the midway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Am I getting that right? I'm not a meteorologist or astrologist. And actually in our Jewish tradition, we also recognize this midway point. Rabbi Jill Hammer writes that in this season of earth within air, we note the warming of the air, how it rouses the earth. Beneath our feet, plants and animals awaken and act. Life begins to flow. According to a traditional midrash, God sends 3 mystical coals to earth, and the third coal to warm the earth comes on this very day at this halfway point. 3 in Jewish lore is a sacred number, she writes, representing completion. With the third coal, the Holy One sets spring in motion. Now there is no turning back. As the Jewish month of Shvat ends, the earth loosens and opens to change. As we enter into this Shabbat, we take a deep breath and release, turning from the cold of winter to the rebirth of spring, that we might open up as well in this season. We continue with the singing of our Kabbalat Shabbat songs, beginning first with Shir Hamalot on page 331.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. That's the first part. Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach. Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach. They can be sung at the same time. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. The words go like this. Shir Hamalot V'shuv Adonai Et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kechonim Az Yemale Schok Pinu Ulshonenu Rina Az Yomru V'Agoyim Higdil Adonai Lasot Imele Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Continue welcoming in Shabbat with the joy of singing, page 342 at the bottom of the page, Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah.
A good deed leads to another good deed. Aveira, therefore, a not so good deed, leads to not so good outcomes. Lihiot Tzaddik, to be a righteous person, Zeh Tov, that is what is good. Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah, Avera Goreret Avera, whoa, whoa, Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, ya la 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 la. Let's do that again. Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah, Avera Goreret Avera, whoa, whoa, Mitzvah Goreret Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, ya la 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 la. Lehiyot Tzadik, Zeto, Zeto. Lehiyot Tzadik, Zemazeh, Tov me'od, Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah. Avera, Goreret Avera, whoa, whoa, Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, ya la 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 la. Lehiyot Tzadik, Lehiyot Tzadik, Zeto, Zeto. Lehiyot Tzadik, Zemazeh, Tov me'od, Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah. Avera, Goreret Avera, whoa, whoa, Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, Goreret Mitzvah, ya la 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 la. dancing section is open. Liked it. That's great.
Speaking of dancing,
Speaking of.
as we continue with Lechado D on pages 20 and 21, the mystics, the Kabbalists imagined Shabbat and welcoming Shabbat like that of a bride with that same intensity. We might even have a bride here tonight. And if we want to practice a hora for tomorrow, now's a great chance. We continue Lechado D, pages 20 and 21.
לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise.
בואי ושלום עצרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Turning to page 28, we remain standing as we continue with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la lay lay lay, 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 ya la lay lay lay. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la lay lay lay, 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 ya la lay lay lay.
We read together on the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim.
And on page 32, together in the English, everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת.
On page 39, in the English, we read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 40.
Lay, 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 lay. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נתן בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך רב ובניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם, לעולם ועד. ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גל ישראל.
Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Page 42 and 43.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Hashkiveinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkiveinu l'shalom. Hashkiveinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkiveinu l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkiveinu l'shalom.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. We continue with Tefillah on pages 46 and following. Please rise.
Yay, lay, 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 yalla, 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 lay, lay, lay. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalla lay lay lay, 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 yalla lay lay lay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו נשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש, ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We turn to page 259 for our prayer for Israel. At this time, we are thinking, of course, about all the hostages, and I have actually some optimism and hope hearing news and reports that a deal might be reached soon to end fighting and to bring the hostages home. We also have seen this week some abhorrent rhetoric around settling Gaza and dehumanization from far-right ministers in Israel that do not represent our Jewish values. And I applaud our own U.S. government, which I think has rightfully taken a nuanced response to some of that settler violence, specifically calling out those individual bad actors in the settlements who are inciting violence, which also is so anathema to our Jewish values. We join together on the bottom of page 259. O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who would seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace, and send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. We take moments now for silent prayer.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Ha'olam.
In a moment, we'll be on page 253 for the Misha Beirach, our prayer for healing. Some of you might have seen in the New York Times last week an article from Rabbi Sharon Brous, who is a wonderful rabbi out in California and author of a new book called The Amen Effect. In the article, which is a sort of excerpt from this book, which I highly recommend to everyone, she talks about a text from the Mishnah from Midot 2:2, which actually, when I read it, I was amazingly surprised that I knew that text, not just because of rabbinical school, but because Rabbi Mader had actually taught that same text at the High Holidays this year. The text talks about a ritual that used to happen in the ancient temple, where thousands of pilgrims would assemble in Jerusalem. They would climb the steps of the Temple Mount, and they would all turn right en masse, circling counterclockwise, if you can picture it. Meanwhile, the broken-hearted, the mourners, those who were lonely or sick or had family that were hurting, they would make that same ritual walk, but they would turn to the left and circle clockwise. Rabbi Brous imagines these people looking into each other's eyes, and those that were there going to the right side would say, "What happened to you? Why does your heart ache?" And those who walked on the other side might say, "My father died," or "There are so many things I never got to say," or "My child is sick," or "My partner left." And those on the right could then offer a blessing. "May the Holy One comfort you. You are not alone." And they would continue to walk to the next person. In her book, she talks about how each of us have that same power today to bring comfort and healing to so many around us. As we prepare for our blessing of healing, if you are holding someone in your heart tonight in need of healing, mind, body, or spirit, I invite you to speak their names aloud at this time or write them in the chat.
Mishebeirach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imo Mekor habracha lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Our thoughts move from thoughts of brokenness to thoughts of joy and celebration as we take a moment to express some gratitude. And so before we sing our blessing of gratitude, Shechianu, we want to first recognize all of those joyous moments, those simchas in our lives. And if you are celebrating something online, please write it in the chat or here in person. We'd love to hear from you, all those good things that are happening last week or coming up in this week. I know we got at least 2 things happening in the sanctuary tomorrow that we're celebrating. So maybe we'll start down front. What, Steiners? Drew, we got anything going on tomorrow? You are becoming a bar mitzvah. We are so excited. Mazel tov, Drew. And in a minute, we're going to welcome Lindsay and Jarrett up here. Linz and Jer, who are going to be married tomorrow, and we're so excited for that. What else are we celebrating? What else we got? Some other good things? Yeah, Susan. Oh, so wonderful. So good to hear that your father is back home and doing well. Yes. Is that Owen? Is that right? Did I remember that right? All right, Owen. Say it again really loud. Nice. Big basketball game coming up. All right. That's important. Yeah. What else? What else? Anyone else celebrating? Yeah, please. 4 months till your sister's wedding. All right, lots of simchas, lots of weddings coming up. Nice. What else? Yes. Who do we got in the back there? I think I see Cal. Is that Isadora? Everyone watch out. Isadora passed her driving test. No, I'm just kidding. I have no doubt that you're the most wonderful driver. And Jenny's knuckles weren't white at all during that whole time. Mazel tov. That's a big coming of age. That's a big moment. Yeah, what else? Is that Erica? Wow. Oh. Another father who's doing much better as we see our sort of aging parents, but to see that he's also so well that he's going to the construction site where he probably shouldn't be. But that's wonderful to hear that he's doing well as well. That's so great. Anyone else? Yeah, Jonathan. 35th wedding anniversary. Mazel tov. What's that? She put up with you. No, what a wonderful marriage. What an example to all of us. 35 years. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Well, I sort of alluded to it, but I'm now honored to welcome Lindsay and Jarrett to come join us on the Bima for a blessing. While they come up, I'll embarrass them a little bit and just say a couple words to say that, it's very interesting. We're starting to see these COVID couples. And this is sort of I don't know, people talk about the COVID babies, right? We had we thought there might be a boom, people stuck inside a lot. But we're also seeing now, a few years on, these couples that got together during the pandemic. And I feel like this is going to be a cultural phenomenon for years to go. But I mentioned that tonight because I think there was something really special about that we talked about, that really it enabled you guys to develop such a deep relationship right from the onset that was not rooted on physicality, because it couldn't be. You were protecting your families, you were, social distancing. I think I remember you guys sat far across from each other from Kafar maybe, in Rittenhouse, kind of like waving, FaceTiming and texting. But what was so beautiful about that, I think, is it really built this foundation of communication and understanding and just this deep, deep love and respect for one another. And I've seen that so much in the way you guys care for each other, in the way you support each other, and really to see this whole circle of friends that is here tonight is absolutely amazing, to see that community that you've built around yourselves. And so in anticipation of so much more tomorrow, I want to offer you this blessing tonight in front of the congregation. Source of laughter and gladness, let your presence accompany these loving companions. Pour love over them and grant them growth, each alone and together. May health and devotion, laughter and understanding abound for them. May they have the strength to share life's sorrows, and may their love deepen and flower. Open their hearts to one another, and may their hands be open to family, to friends, to our people Israel, and to all humanity. And let us all say, Amen and Mazel Tov!
Sieben Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Sieben Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Sieben Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Sieben Tov. Yelanu, 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 Ulecho Yisrael. Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Yelanu, Yelanu, Ulecho Yisrael.
Mazel Tov. And to offer gratitude for this blessing, for all the blessings in our community, we join together in Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen. Thank you. My mother likes to remind me, well, she likes to remind me a lot of things, but my mother likes to remind me that when I was a kid, when she asked me what I want to do when I grow up, I said, I want a job where every day is different. And I will say I definitely got that. In the life of a rabbi, I get to do it all, from birth to death and everything in between. And in fact, just this week, I had the experience where I began the day with a bris, and then right afterwards, I was at a funeral. And it was actually incredibly powerful to be there with those families for both of those moments. It was especially wonderful to have a bris this week, though. Sorry, no, I'm talking about a bris. I know, it's a little it's too soon. I gotcha, but it was especially interesting to have a bris this week because this week we read the Ten Commandments in Parshat Yitro. And you're going to say, what's the connection there, Rabbi? So I began the bris by talking about something you've probably heard me talk about way too much. Hank's going to be like, I've heard this 10 times, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's one of my pet peeves. when you see a picture of the Ten Commandments, they're wrong. I'm trying to think. We have them up there, the two tablets, right? You can picture it. You see it behind me on the ark. You can picture the two tablets. And almost 99% of the time when you see it, how is it written? 5 commandments on one tablet and 5 commandments on the other. There's your 10 commandments. Except here's the thing. Nowhere in the Torah does it say it was written like that. All it says is there were 2 tablets, we can imagine that, and there were 10 commandments. But it doesn't tell us that there were 5 and 5. In fact, in Mechilta de Rebbe Ishmael, a 3rd century Midrashic text, Rabbi Hanina ben Gamliel, when asking this question, how were the commandments actually laid out, says that each tablet contained 5 commandments, the way we think of it. But the sages, and anytime you're in a piece of Talmud and it says, someone said something, but the sages said this, it means the first guy was wrong and the sages were right. No, it's not wrong or right. We have these arguments, right? It's dissenting opinion, but we ultimately rule with the sages, which is the majority. But the sages said 10 on one tablet and the same 10 on the other. Thus, the tablets were duplicates. Can you picture this? I was talking with my Introduction to Judaism class about this, and I said, anyone ever sent an email where you put a CC on there? All right, so this one's for Drew or any of the young ones. You know what CC stands for on your email? No idea, right? Any of the kids? Yeah, no kids are going to know this. I'm old now. Carbon copy, right? Anyone who's 43 or older, you probably are with me on this one, right? Carbon copy was like the little sheets, those carbon sheets that you put in. You had like the blue and the pink underneath, and you push really hard to make sure it came through so you'd have this duplicate. So when someone invented email, they used the same terminology, right? Anytime you write a contract, what do? 2 copies, 1 for each party, right? And this is what the 10 Commandments are. The 10 Commandments are a contract. In fact, we've actually found in the ancient Near East archaeological examples of other tablets that actually had 2 tablets with the same thing written on both. And you could almost imagine like a dotted line in the middle, break on that line, God gets God's half, people of Israel get our half, right? Because the 10 Commandments are a contract between us and God. The Hebrew word for contract is brit, right? Or as we might know in a more Ashkenazi pronunciation, bris. What is a bris? A brit milah? Or a simchat bat for a daughter, or a brit bat is probably a better terminology. In all of these ceremonies, for any child, a brit shalom, any of these ceremonies in welcoming a child, what are we doing? We are welcoming them into the covenant. That covenant that was made at Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments as that contract. That covenant that said, God will be our God and we will be God's people. We will follow these laws. It's very interesting. People often ask, and why is a bris then on the 8th day? It's the same reason. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, may his memory be a blessing, writes in talking about the 8th day, the idea that if we think of the first 7 days as God's realm, as the time of creation, right? The original, the OG 7 days, that was God creating the world. And what is the 8th day? That's the first day when humanity begins to take over. The 8th day is the day that we are out of Eden, and now we become partners with God in that contract, in that brit. And so we have a bris on that 8th day for that same reason, to recognize that we are partners with God and that we are entering into that covenant. Now, as any good contract lawyer will tell you, and actually whenever I do a wedding and we sign a ketubah, which is another contract, right? And oftentimes we think of that same imagery of Mount Sinai as like a ketubah. The 10 Commandments are like a ketubah, a contract between God and the Jewish people as 2 people getting married is the same idea. I always say to the witnesses at the ketubah, I say, your job is to make sure that these 2 people are here of their own free will, that there is no coercion, right? I think we might have our witnesses here for tomorrow, so that's your job. You're also witnessing, that's pretty important. But when we enter into a contract, both parties have to enter in with complete free will. However, there's a very interesting midrash on this week's Torah portion. And the Midrash says that the people, in the text it says, the people of Israel stood at the foot of Mount Sinai. But the Hebrew is very interesting here because it's sort of a strange word. And the word in Hebrew is actually tachat, which means under. The people stood under Mount Sinai. How could they stand under Mount Sinai? Well, what the Midrash says is that God actually lifted up Mount Sinai, held it over the people's head, and said, "Do you want to enter into this covenant?" And the people said, yeah. Now, it's a very interesting Midrash, right? Because in a sense, it takes away our free will. It sort of makes you wonder about this contract for a second, right? And I'll say, for anyone who was not there at Mount Sinai, you also didn't freely enter into that contract, right? We famously read in Parshat Nitzavim at Yom Kippur, right? Atem Nitzavim HaYom Kan, all of you stand here today to make this covenant with God. And traditionally, the text says, all of you who are here and those who are not here. And our sages interpret that to mean all of the past and all the future generations. So everyone here who is Jewish, whether you like it or not, you signed that contract and you are part of that covenant. But maybe you didn't have full free will in that. There's another problem with this contract. This past week, the non-Jewish world celebrated International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I say the non-Jewish world because, we can commemorate it as well, but actually we have our own day. We have Yom HaShoah in the Jewish calendar to remember. But much of the world celebrated this, and so I was thinking, or commemorated, I was thinking about this idea, and there's a post-Holocaust thinker, Yitz Greenberg, who is one of my favorites, Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, Irving Greenberg. And he came out of the Holocaust, and his response to it was, "You broke the deal, God. The Holocaust was never in the deal. If we had known, we never would have signed on to this contract." And actually, Greenberg, an Orthodox Jew, then goes on to say, not that we should just abandon Judaism, not that we should abandon this contract, abandon this covenant, but in fact, he says, we now, every single person who chooses to be Jewish, whether you were born Jewish or not, you are a Jew by choice. He says that every single one of us enters into a new covenant, a voluntary covenant. And he has a beautiful essay I encourage you to read called Voluntary Covenant. And this idea that he says the covenant at Sinai, that contract, that 10 Commandments that we read about today, that brit, or that brit from your baby naming or whatever else, is actually not relevant because God didn't hold up God's end of the bargain. God didn't protect us. God wasn't there. God's face was hidden. And therefore, we enter into a voluntary covenant. And for Greenberg, the voluntary covenant is actually even more powerful than the covenant at Sinai because this voluntary covenant is one where we are equal partners with God, where we are on that same standing. We've just begun our Introduction to Judaism class. I think we might even have a few students here tonight. We have the largest Introduction to Judaism class we've ever had. Is that right, Stephen? 60 people? 62 people coming every single week to learn about Judaism. And one of the most amazing things I've noticed this year in the class is I would say the vast majority, definitely the majority, are all folks that have some sort of Jewish heritage. Maybe one Jewish parent but weren't brought up with a lot of Judaism, maybe a Jewish grandparent. And when we go around the room and everyone tells the story at the start of the class of why they're here, so many said, well, I have a Jewish parent, I have a Jewish grandparent, but it wasn't never really that important in our upbringing. But now I really want to know more. Now I really want to claim that Judaism. And what I'm hearing is now I want to enter into that voluntary covenant. I'll say not everyone in this class is necessarily converting or affirming their Judaism, but many are. And I think about the same response that Greenberg had after the Holocaust, and as we in America and across the world have faced Jew hatred and everything since October 7th, the response to that hate, and I still say all the time, the best response to anti-Semitism is living vibrant Jewish lives, is learning about that 3,000-year beautiful tradition from Moses to Sandy Koufax, to quote the Big Lebowski, to enter into that voluntary covenant. Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, who is the special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, tells the story of a young man who came up to her after she had done this wonderful presentation, and he was wearing a kippah, and he said to her, he said, Ambassador, I wanted to let you know that I've started wearing a kippah because there's so much anti-Semitism in the world, and I want to prove them wrong, and I want to do this to fight it. And she looked at him and she said, I'm paraphrasing, she said, it's wonderful if you want to wear a kippah. It's wonderful if you want to experiment with different ritual and take on different Jewish traditions, but don't do it because of the haters. Don't do it to try to prove something to them. Do it because you want to. Do it because you love Judaism. Do it because, as Rabbi Irving Greenberg would say, because you are ready to enter into that voluntary covenant. And so this Shabbat and beyond, may we all continue to enter in to that voluntary covenant and to continue to live vibrant Jewish lives. Shabbat Shalom. We turn back in our prayer books now to page 282, followed by 287 for Aleinu. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. The words of World War II partisan Hannah Senesh. Yesh kochavim. There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This week, our congregation observes yahrzeit for Edith K. Abrams, Sidney K. Allo, Sandra Kimmelman Altman, Max Aaron, Francis Axler, Robert Bambury, Jacob Bauer, Julius C. Balinson, Hortense L. Becker, Rose Berenstain, Lucille Berger, Benjamin Berkowitz, Ruth Saller Blank, Alvin Block, Joseph A. Bloom, Willard R. Bonwit, Richard Burr, Simon R. Kaplan, Emmanuel Kaplan, David Chadrow, Bennett Cohen, Glenn Cole, Fred Coleman, Philip Falcon, Bertha Pasternak Feldman, Robert H. Fleischer, Manfred J. Flock, Henrietta Fox, Eva Friedman, Natalie S. Friedman, Sandra Gertston Blinn, Jacob W. H. Glass, Ada Halpert Goldman, Bernice Bieberman Gordon, Michael Greenwald, Morris Gross, Flora Kleinman Haas, Morris W. Hahn Sr., Harry L. Hart, Leon Heller, Milton J. Hinlin, Ezra Katz, Miriam Clothen, Philip Kolb, Irene Leitzel, Arthur Bernard Levinson, Jesse Kaplan Lieberman, Rosa E. Loeb, Dora Wasserman Levenstein, Annie Marcus, Emmanuel Marks, Gail Malka Meister, Margaret Mayer, Lawrence Michaels, Abraham Joseph Michelson, Benjamin Miller, Jerome Muchnick, Susie Kohlberg Nussbaum, Manley Prussell, Suzanne Cauterer Raidman, John Rappaport, Adela Rosenberg, Harold S. Rosenbluth, Daniel Rosenzweig, Masha Rudman, Bernard L. Selesky, Hyman Saul, Louise Schwartz, David Scott, Dorothy Seldis, Sarah Selig, Dora Shapiro, Teresa Seidenbach, Jeanette Spector, Thomas Spector, Hattie Lowenberg Singer, Barbara Gorman Siskin, Carrie Stern Smuckler, Jeanette Spector, Solomon Stiegman, Walter M. Stepacker, Paul M. Stern, Glenn Waldman, Edward Waxman, Hilda Weiss, Carrie Stern Weiss, Marvin Welsh, Edward Wolf, Mark Yaskin, Richard J. Zander Jr., Alan Zuckerman. We add the names of those who've been taken from our midst, but not from our hearts, in these most recent days, for whom we are observing Shaloshim, the 30 days of mourning. Eva Ellen Barmash, Sandra Greenfield Basikas, Janet Benish, Bernice E. Mazzella. If you are observing Yahrzeit or Shaloshim, or remembering someone whose name was not mentioned, if you're online, I invite you to write their names in the chat, or here in the sanctuary to speak their names aloud at this time. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. We turn to page 294 and rise as a community for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayei chon uv'yomei chon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal, shmei dekudusha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace and comfort to all who are bereaved among us. And let us say, Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
It's my pleasure to welcome John Broder.
Shabbat Shalom. Good to see everybody. First of all, congratulations to Lindsay and Jarrett. Wonderful Mazel Tov and to the Steiner family. Good luck tomorrow, and we know you'll do great. Rabbi, thank you for that discussion about contracts. Some of you know I'm an adjunct professor of law, and it'll be interesting to bring to my students the idea of what I'll call the Tony Soprano version of the contract versus a more voluntary version, so thanks for that. So, we have a lot of great things coming up which are in the program. One that's not, which I'll mention just as prerogative. For those of you who were here last week to hear Congressman Raskin talk about the Second Amendment and the whole insurrection rebellion clause, we have an interesting follow-up a week from Monday, February 12th. Professor Craig Green from Temple Law School will be talking 4 days after the Supreme Court argument about the insurrection clause and how it might apply to the current election that's coming up. So we'll maybe hear the professor's predictions on what's going to happen. Anyway, for anybody new to Road of Shalom, congregant Jordan Marks is waving his hand in the back. Please go back and introduce yourself, and he'll be happy to tell you more about our congregation. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Conclude with words of blessing.
Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai, panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai, panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May God bless us and keep us.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's light shine upon us, and may God be gracious to us.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May we feel God's presence within us always, and may we find peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.